Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I got an email from Marley Myers. Subject line, the temple in Belgium will be inside a pre-existing building. And then in the email, with your speculation that some historic buildings and cathedrals can be turned into temples, I thought you'd like to dig into this. Yes, Marley, I would. And by the way, I have to give credit to my mom too. She sent me a Facebook Messenger message with the same article. So I thank you both. So, yeah, this is something that I've been tracking. The reason why is because of this, just to get you caught up in case you're new to the channel or haven't seen these videos. I have made the case many times that the BYU Jerusalem Center could be turned into a temple. Probably not a temple for ordinance work, like with a celestial room and ceiling rooms and stuff like that. But not all temples have to have those things. That's what we're building right now because that's what we're focused on. But we have the example of the Kirtland Temple. We also have the 24 temple complex that will be built in the future in Jackson County. The original plan was for those temples to be like multi-purpose, each one having different purposes, including things like administrative buildings, kind of like what we have right now. In downtown Salt Lake, you have the one block that has the temple, the other block that has the administration building. It's not a temple, but it seems like that's what it would be, or that would be the case in New Jerusalem with the 24 temples. So when we're thinking about Jerusalem, and we're thinking about the prophecy that there has to be a temple there before Christ comes, this is one thing that people point to and they say, oh, we're not even close. We are nowhere close to having a temple in Jerusalem, because they have the preconception that it has to be on the Temple Mount, or that there can't be multiple temples in Jerusalem, and that it has to look like the temples that we build right now, which I don't think is the case. I feel like the BYU Jerusalem Center could be like an administrative type temple where Christ rules from. I really think so. People will say, well, it was never built to be a temple. Well, guess what? Neither were the buildings that we're about to talk about in this video. I have a spreadsheet called Temples Repurposed, and I have a number of examples where there were buildings that were never built to be temples, and yet they are right now. So I've looked at the BYU Jerusalem Center. I've also looked at the Dome of the Rock. You should watch this video. The design of the Dome of the Rock is not Muslim. It's actually Christian, and we've looked into the symbolism of domes and who built it. And I don't see any reason why that can't be repurposed into a temple. I made a video that's an hour and 14 minutes long, so I'll put a link for this video in the description box below. But I don't think that it's that far-fetched. Okay, so let's go ahead and read about this Belgium temple, and then we're going to go one by one and look at these other temples that the buildings used to be used. Sorry, the buildings used to be used for something else. Like in this case, the Vernal, Utah temple. It was a tabernacle. Back in the early days of the church, like in the Utah period, they built these basically large buildings. They weren't like your typical chapel, but they were really large. I think mostly they were used for like stake conferences and other special events, but they were called tabernacles. There's not just the tabernacle at Temple Square. There's other tabernacles. So there was one in Vernal, and it was repurposed, and now it's a temple. It was never built to be a temple, and yet it is. So we'll go through the list of what I have. Okay, first, so let's look at this. Open house and dedication date announced for the Deseret Peak, Utah temple. Okay, so that's nice. We are going to go ahead and skip that, though. And let's go down to the last part that talks about the Belgium temple. The temple will be built within an existing building at Avenue des Arts 52, Brussels, Belgium. All right, well, I looked that up. Here it is on Google Street View. Look up. I'm not sure exactly which one. Probably this one right here. But all of these look like, I haven't looked into the history of these buildings, but you can tell they're all pretty new. None of them look like they're church buildings of any sort. It looks like they're all like, businesses. Like there's Mayor Brown, that's the sign on this building right here, if that's the same one. So whatever the case, there's probably one of these here. There's nothing on the other side. So it's going to be like one of these. One of these, I guess, has been purchased by the church, and it's going to be repurposed into a temple. We can go to the Google Earth and kind of see like a 3D thing. You see like the city skyline back there. There's some skyscrapers around that area. So, but it's like, yeah, it looks like it's probably that building that we were just looking at that the street view is centered on. So, and that's interesting. I don't know, like, it's kind of hard to tell. Like, it seems like this is all the same building right here, maybe. Maybe it includes some of that. I don't know. There's the entrance to like the parking garage. I don't know, but it's interesting. And it looks like it's going to be like touching, it's like neighboring building or buildings. I don't know if there's anything behind it, but that's pretty unique. There are other, like, I don't want to say skyscraper, but kind of like high-rise temples. We're going to be looking at those, like the Manhattan, New York temple, the Hong Kong, the Shanghai is probably going to be a high-rise temple. But in this case, I think this would be the only one that is actually like touching other buildings rather than being like having like a separation. Let's go back to the Google Earth. Yeah. So it looks like this is one building right here. You have this one next to it and they're touching. And then furthermore, this may be part of the same building or not, but either way, it's like touching on both sides. So I think that might be a first in the history of the church. Okay, so let's go back here. Plans call for a multi-story temple of approximately 25,500 square feet, a meeting house, and arrival facilities. We're going to look at that too. We're going to look at other temples that are like multi-purpose, like the building is multi-purpose. Okay, this will be the city's first temple. Church President Russell M. Nelson announced the temple during the church's general conference in April 2021. So it's been a while. I mean, we're looking at like over 3 years since this was announced. Quote, temples are a vital part of the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ in its fullness. Ordinances, ceremonies of the temple fill our lives with power and strength available in no other way. We thank God for those blessings, the prophet said, as 20 new temples were announced, including the Belgium-Brussels temple. Brussels is in the north-central portion of Belgium, approximately 70 miles or 110 kilometers from the Belgian coast, and 100 miles or 180 kilometers from Belgium's southern tip. Detailed design plans for the temple are still under development. Further information, including exterior renderings, will be made public later. So we'll have to wait and see what that's going to be like. A groundbreaking date will be announced in the future. Project leaders will work with city officials on plans and permits for the temple in preparation for future construction activities. Brussels is a major international center and the European country's capital. Which I think about that when we think about like these important temples like Washington, D.C., Rome, Italy. This might be another one because if I'm not mistaken, that's where European Union headquarters is at, isn't it? It's in Brussels. Yeah, it's in Brussels. It's interesting because we know that the temple reduces the power of Satan, and I think it does affect the local area. Like it affects that geographical area because then you have more people in that area going to the temple, receiving the protection that comes with the ordinances of the temple, and they take that with them in the immediate area where they live. So, okay. So that's interesting. Nearly 7,000 Latter-day Saints and 12 congregations reside in Belgium. The Brussels Belgium temple will be the church's first temple in the country. The preaching of the restored gospel began in Belgium when the first missionary arrived in 1888. Missionaries laboring in Switzerland and Germany were also sent to Belgium. And I'm not going to read this last paragraph. I just accidentally highlighted that. Okay, so that's really neat. So here's our newest example of a building that was not built to be a temple. In fact, it looks just like a typical like European building, and it's being turned into a temple. Something completely different from what it was originally designed for. Okay, so let's go to my spreadsheet, and let's just go through these temples just as a refresher, or in case you haven't seen this before. Okay, so the first one we're in 1997, and it's the Vernal, Utah temple. It used to be the Uinta Stake Tabernacle, and here's what it looks like. Yeah, this if you didn't have the angel Moroni there, you may not assume that that's a temple if you're just like driving around in Vernal and you didn't know any better. It could be mistaken for any number of churches, maybe not even like our church. It's a large building, but yeah, it was renovated and now it's a temple. So that's the first example. After that, 2004, we have the Copenhagen, Denmark temple. That used to be the, I don't know how to pronounce this, but Priervej Chapel. So let's take a look at that. And here it is. Just, again, something that, like a building that looks kind of like a bank, really, or some kind of like commerce building. But it was a chapel. I don't know the whole history of the temple, but again, another building, another building that was repurposed. And now it's a temple. Okay, the next one, Manhattan, New York temple. It used to be a multi-purpose stake center. And hopefully we're all familiar with this one. It made big news. I was stoked because, I mean, again, here's a major city. This is New York City. If you're not familiar with New York, if you're like outside of the country or just don't know, Manhattan is one of the 5 boroughs of New York. It's like when you think of New York City with all the skyscrapers, you're typically thinking of Manhattan. And so this is in New York City, what you typically think of when you think of New York City. And I guess this would have been the first kind of like high-rise temple. It's just right there. You know, you see the busy city street below, a large high-rise behind it, and you know, just not your typical looking temple. So that's really neat. We'll come back to this one later. Okay, the next one. I have a couple on here. It's not that they were something else prior to this. I probably need to change the name of the spreadsheet, but I also wanted to keep track of like other temples where there were just like dramatic changes, like stuff that we haven't seen before. And we've seen that with both the Ogden, Utah temple and also we'll get to the Provo one later. So here's the Ogden, there we go. Whatever. Here's the Ogden, Utah temple. I have my own picture that I've taken of that. When I got home from my mission for my birthday, I got my first DSLR camera. And I really took off with photography. I wanted to do as much temple photography as I could. And this is what it used to look like. This was the Ogden, Utah temple. And next to it, you had, I don't know the official name, probably the Ogden Tabernacle, which they took off the steeple. I think the main building is still there, but they didn't want the tabernacle competing with the temple. But this is what the temple used to look like, and it underwent a major renovation. You can tell that this architecture right here is pretty dated, back to like the 60s and 70s. I think this was constructed in the 70s, and it was like this kind of like 70s space age type aesthetic that I don't know if you were alive at the time, like, was that just like amazing to you? There's a certain beauty to it. I'm not going to like bash on it, but it just, that kind of aesthetic hasn't really aged too well. And so what they did is they just completely redid it. like to the extreme. And here's what it looks like now. It's very modern looking. And I think that's for the better. I think it needed to happen. It's nothing against the architect. I think it was Emil Fetzer he was the one that was also the architect for the Independence Visitor Center. In fact, let me pull that up. LDS Independence Visitor Center. And you know, this actually kind of also has like an outdated appearance. it looks like something from the 70s. Now remember the building itself, the building proper, on the other side of this like arcade of arches. It was built according to the specifications given to Joseph Smith, that was revealed to Joseph Smith for the temples of the 24 temple complex. So I wouldn't be surprised if this underwent some kind of renovation, especially it'll have to once it becomes a temple. But you can kind of see that like old aesthetic as well. He designed this, and he also designed the Ogden, this one, and the Provo temples, because they're like twin temples. Or at least they used to be, not anymore. Okay, so this is the new version. So pretty dramatic change. And then the next one was 2016, the Provo City Center Temple, which used to be the Provo Tabernacle. And this is it right here. And it looks really nice right now. It looks really good as a temple. It's very pretty. And there's an interesting story with this. The reason why it was renovated is because it caught fire. And there was an interesting story that came out of that. We're looking at the Daily Herald. Scorched portrait of Christ saved from Tabernacle. And we should all recognize this as the famous Second Coming painting by Harry. Yeah, here it is. Harry Anderson. And all of it burned and turned black except for this portion where Christ is. That's really, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. In fact, I have this on my spreadsheet for church specific signs. A Second Coming painting that turned all black from a fire, and the only part that survived was the part that has Christ in it. So anyway, that, I feel like that's kind of miraculous and a sign. But this used to be a tabernacle. Okay, next we have the Anchorage, Alaska temple. This is unique too. So this is what it looks like as of right now. But what they're doing, I guess membership has grown in the area and they need a larger temple. So they're going to completely take this down and build another one. According to this article, it says the significantly larger temple will be built on the same property where a meeting house is currently in use. So it would seem they're going to tear down the original temple and also the meeting house, and then they're going to have this much larger temple that's put in its place. So that's also kind of unique. I don't know of any other temple where that's been done, where a temple has been completely demolished and a new one made to replace it. And not even on the same spot, but somewhere like a different spot, like across the parking lot, essentially. So that's pretty unique. Okay. And then in 2027, dang, I wish I had a reference right here. I must have read something that said that this is expected to be completed in 2027, but you have the Provo temple. Here it is. This is what it currently looks like. So it's, like I said, it's like the twin, or the Ogden and the Provo temple used to be twins, the same architecture essentially. This one is going to undergo the same change as the Ogden temple. I don't know that they're going to be identical, but not only are they going to change this, but it's also going to become, dang, I didn't pull this up. Let's just do it right now. The Provo, Utah Rock Canyon temple. I can't remember if they have, oh, they do. Here's a rendering of it. So there's that compared to that. Are these the same? Yeah. Actually, they may still be twins. I'm just kind of like looking at these like parts that like jut out like this right here. And then it has the single spire. Yeah, I think they might actually be the same. If you have more information about it, more, let me know. But it looks like they're going to be pretty much identical. So yeah, this one's going to receive a new name, a new designation, and it's going to be dramatically different from what it was before, going from that to this. Okay, lastly, what stuck out to me about the Belgium temple is it said it's going to be like it seems like it's going to be a multi-purpose building. You're going to have the temple and then a meeting house and arrival facilities. And the only other temples that I know of that are kind of like where the building is multi-purpose is the Manhattan, New York temple. So we're looking at churchofjesuschristtemples.org. And according to them, they say the temple proper occupies the top 3 floors of the edifice, while the baptistry operates on the first floor. A meeting house spans the 3rd floor, and the 2nd floor houses a public affairs office and distribution center. So that's a really interesting thing. The top 3 floors, temple, and then you have these in between, meeting house, public affairs office, and then on the bottom floor, the 1st floor, excuse me, that's where the baptistry is. So it's like a divided temple. Like you can be on these floors in between the temple, like have the temple above you and below you, but you're not in the temple. You're not in a temple space. That's an interesting concept. So here you have this building that is multi-purpose, part of which is the temple. The same holds true for the Hong Kong China temple. This has also gone under renovations. They took off the Angel Moroni from the top of it. The Hong Kong China temple was originally a multi-purpose building containing a meeting house, family history center, mission office, and apartments, as envisioned and sketched by President Gordon B. Hinckley in the nighttime. I need to add this to my nighttime revelations entry on my quotes A through Z spreadsheet. I didn't know that. I'm tracking like nighttime revelations. It seems like that's like a prime time for prophets to receive revelation. Okay, so anyway, to locate a site for the temple. The Hong Kong China temple originally housed a temple, sub-basement, 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors, a meeting house, basement and 1st floor, a family history center, sub-basement, a small mission office on the 2nd floor, and 3 apartments on the 2nd floor for the temple president and matron, mission president and companion, and mission office missionaries. Dang, that would be cool. That'd be a cool experience. Lucky ducks. The ceiling rooms were located on the 5th floor, the 2 endowment rooms, celestial room, and women's dressing rooms on the 4th floor, the men's dressing rooms, temple offices and waiting area on the 3rd floor, the recommend desk on the 1st floor, and the baptistry in the sub-basement. So yeah, this was a multi-purpose building. It said that it seems like something's changed. I don't know if it's still multi-purpose or not. Oh yeah, I have this too. The Kowloon Tong Chapel, Hong Kong Mission Home, and Hong Kong Mission Office, which stood on side-by-side lots, were all raised to make way for the Hong Kong China Temple. The temple originally housed replacements for these facilities, but later the church constructed a meeting house, housing facilities, mission office, and distribution center across the street. So it seems like it's not multi-purpose anymore. Let me know if you have better information than that. And then let me highlight this so I don't forget to put this on my spreadsheet. Okay. And then the only other one that I know of that's a multi-purpose building is the future Shanghai temple. It says, in Shanghai, a modest multi-purpose meeting place will provide a way for Chinese members to continue to participate in ordinances of the temple. But there's not much more than that. So, yeah, that's what I have for temples. They can be, you can take a temple, or you can take a building that was not designed to be a temple and then repurpose it. You can demolish a temple and build a brand new one on a different spot and then carry the name over. And then you can also do an extreme makeover on a temple, as is the case with the Ogden and the Provo, Utah temples, where you can't even recognize it after the renovation. So there's no limits as far as I can tell. There doesn't seem to be any limits. which, you know, the Lord can do whatever he wants. Again, let's bring it back full circle. That's why I don't have a problem with this becoming a temple. And I think it's even likely. I think that there's so many people that just, for whatever reason, they don't want the second coming to happen. They don't want to think about it. They put it off in their minds. When you bring up stuff like this, it's like, no, it can't be. It has to be on the Temple Mount. It was never designed to be a temple. My BYU professor told me it was never designed to be a temple. Well, he's not God. He's not the prophet. The Lord can do whatever he wants, and we have all these examples of what can be done. And I think that could include also, if it has to be on the Temple Mount, I think that it could include the Dome of the Rock, frankly. I do. Watch this video. I'll explain more why in the video. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.